Sometimes when facing a hurdle that is thrown in front of you, between you and your goal, there is plenty that you can do. But sometimes doing anything is the worst possible thing that you could do. I'm Colin Wright, and you are watching Consider This. Typically, we have an immense amount of control over our lives and our environment as well. A whole lot more than we are willing to recognize in a lot of cases too. Because I think if we recognize this, if we acknowledge that we have this ability to change things within ourselves, but also in our larger environment to try to improve things, that then we'll feel responsible to do something about it. And that can be difficult, and it can be a big responsibility as well. But there are some cases when doing something, doing anything, in fact, can actually push you backward. It can push you further away from your goal. It's like scratching an itch. It just makes it worse to try to do something to cure the symptom that is ailing you. The same thing applies to cooking a particular dish, doing anything to that dish rather than letting it simmer for a while, unmolested, just let it sit there, can actually have a negative effect on the dish itself. It can keep it from cooking as fast or correctly. It can make it too soggy. There's a lot of harm that you can cause to a lot of these dishes as you're preparing them if you don't just let them be. Or maybe in a relationship. Maybe you had an argument with your spouse or your significant other or a family member, and you want to address the problem as quickly as possible. But what you really need to do is sit with the information and sit with what happened for a while and allow them to do the same. In all of these cases, time and allowing time to pass without doing anything, without taking action, is the correct course. But it can be very, very difficult for us to accept that, particularly people like me, for example, who like to act on things, who like to try to fix things, who like to have solutions to things, even when the situation calls for the opposite of that. We very often like to fill silence, and we like to fill blank calendars with things to do. It makes us feel like we're getting somewhere, like we're accomplishing something. Something that actually helps me deal with this, because I am very much the type of person who likes to try to act on something. If I feel like there's something wrong, I want to solve that problem. I want to come up with a solution immediately and start working toward it. And in the circumstances where the best solution is to sit and do nothing, I try to make inaction feel like an action. I try to ensure that I give myself, or give the other person, or give the food that I'm working on, the proper amount of time to just sit and be. And I try to look at that inaction as a goal that I'm trying to accomplish. And so as a result, doing nothing becomes my doing something. What I am doing is nothing. And adjusting that label, that categorization in my mind helps me accomplish that. Helps me be much more capable of just sitting and letting things lie when that's what they need to do. Now, after recognizing this, the real key is figuring out what situation calls for what response, when you should have that fast twitch reflex to try to jump into action and try to solve things, because that is called for in a lot of circumstances, and when the better move is just to sit calmly, calculatingly, and think and let things be. There's no way to really get that feel other than through experience. But ideally, moving forward, you can be thinking about this and assessing and taking note when you fail to do the correct thing, so that then in the future you can look for the different indicators that tell you which situation you're dealing with right now. When it comes to relationships, I've found that actually just asking in a lot of cases helps. And saying, is this a situation where you're looking for a solution, or is this a situation where you're just expressing something to me and you'd like me to acknowledge that and to comfort you in this situation, as opposed to immediately jumping in and trying to solve the problem. And the same is true if you're trying to cook something. Just learning to recognize what the food is doing so that you can tell if it needs to sit and be left alone for a moment, or if you need to sit there and stir it or throw something else into the pot. I think being aware that inaction is an action, that it is a valid option, is the first step toward recognizing this, though. And so ideally, what we all try to aspire to, in addition to trying to get better at things, we also try to get better at nothing. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, a like or a subscribe would be awesome. You can leave a comment in the comment section below, ask a question for me to answer in a future episode if you would like. You can also ask questions on the Consider This Facebook page. You can find out more about me and my work at colin.io. My blog is exilelifestyle.com. My podcast is called Let's Know Things and can be found at letsknowthings.com. And you can find me personally pretty much everywhere on the internet at Colin is my name.